notes, but we're going to take the next 30 minutes
Okay.
and talk about isolation and loneliness.
Ooh.
Are we talking in kind of COVID time and just in general or under the rubric of COVID or
I
uh,
think that we could talk, you know, under COVID, but then a little bit in general, because I think isolation and loneliness was a problem pre-COVID.
yeah.
From I had read in different journals about
Oh yeah.
the epidemic. It said,
Right.
and then COVID happened. This was like years ago that I read about it.
Yeah.
So I'd like to talk about it a little bit on both ends.
Okay.
Uh, I know, since COVID, a lot of our vet students and other, one of our vet students pointed out even their professors, this remote world that we're all in now. Some people really aren't thriving in it. But like I mentioned, even before that, whether you're a veteran or you're a teenager or an adult, like, I mean, we're so fragmented. The article I was reading was saying that, in like the early 1900s, there was only like 20% of people who lived, in different states from their family. And
Mm.
now the majority of people are moving away from home earlier. They're moving out of state. Families are spread across the United States or across the globe, even. And so loneliness has been really on the rise for years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it also will, with veterinarians, you talk about those in rural practices. That's one of the factors that supposedly can contribute, can increase risk type of thing.
Hmm.
Oh
More
yeah.
isolated, more remote communities. We know that in general from the suicide prevention literature that
Hmm.
people in more rural community, have higher suicide rates. So
Yeah.
interesting. But we don't have to go
Yeah.
down the strictly the suicide path, but I think
Hmm.
I get it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, if we find ourselves in a position where we're depressed or disengaged or feeling lonely, I think it takes a little self-awareness, right? Because I don't think that it's the first thing that we come to when we would really admit, I'm sad because I'm lonely. I think we might often misdiagnose it, if you will, to where we're like, um, bored. I'm just bored, or something like that. And then we wouldn't really correlate it with being lonely. And so I think a little self awareness comes in at first to let us know, really this is what we're longing for, is these social connections. Um, and then from there, you know, what do you guys think are really good ways to decrease the negative emotions that come when you're lonely?
Yeah. Well, I could just kind of start out there and say, as an introvert, I love my loneliness. Sometimes I appreciate just kind of being to myself.
Like
But Renee,
solitude, though, right?
Renee, to your point, I think that the self awareness, or just kind of understanding what it is that you want as an individual, like, do you have longing to have a greater network of people around you? And I've even seen with people who are close to me where they are having a hard time finding friends who are on the same wavelength as them, and they do
Yes.
find loneliness, and they just want to be around their clients and be around a coworker, even because they just
Mhm.
don't have anyone aside from that. And
Yeah.
I think that kind of having, going back to self-awareness, the idealization of being able to sort of see in your mind and write down on paper, this is what I think I would want. as it relates to sort of removing the isolation. That's typically how I tend to do things. As to say that I want a friend, or I want not a colleague, but what do you call it? An associate in these different areas of my life, and then I just go and sort of start taking actions behind that. Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of one thing. It's like, what is it that you think you want?
Yeah. You brought up a couple points there. One thing reminds me of Dr. Henry Townsend. He wrote Boundaries, the book called Boundaries. And he said that when we only have like one person in our life, our spouse or our mom or something like that, you know, we don't need 1,200 friends. We need to have like 5 to 10 quality relationships. And I think that's something that, especially in this social media age, that we are forming more connections but looser, rather than running that rut deeper with like quality friendships and quality relationships where we really feel connected or a sense of belonging. And so I think, as many veterinary professionals are, they are introverted. And so they might shy away from forming deep connections because they think like, I don't need them, or that it's uncomfortable, and I think that there's a difference, right? I think a lot of people might have a and maybe Dr. Feldman can clear this up for us, but a misconception of being shy versus what an introvert is, or just having a different kind of personality, to where, you don't, a lot of people, right, why we're in the industry, because they like animals, they might not like people as much. But, you know, but to be introverted, it doesn't mean that you don't like people, right? Like, you're a people person, right, Doc? Like, you like people, we
Sometimes.
all enjoy people here. Quincy likes people. You do very well with people, but you, you,
Raise the eyebrow. You sure I
you
like
just
people?
oh, come on. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, interesting stuff here. There's no like single overlay, and I think like certainly like loneliness or isolation can be, there's like a continuum. Some people like
Mm.
they like their privacy. They like they're introverted. Uh, they may have social anxiety. There are a lot of people who have social anxiety that just, even in situations that you think like, well, they're not, maybe non-threatening, or conversations that you might have to have with people around that, it can be difficult for them because they have, as I said, this social anxiety, worry about what to say and how what they say will be perceived, and so on and so forth. Um, so, to Dr. Holly's point about knowing ourselves, and we'd like to think that it's important to try to be tuned into our own needs, but we're not always the best judges of that.
Mm.
And a couple of points I just wanted to make that remind me of, I've always kind of incorporated in my work that there's, first of all, social connectedness is can be very important, to people who want that connectedness. It's one thing if you say, hey, I don't care, I don't mind being a hermit, I don't mind being cut off, but we live in a society, and it means kind of built on relationships. And so if people are kind of lacking this feeling like socially unconnected, that can present some problems. They feel they're on the fringe, or they're outliers, and they can't fit in or don't fit in. And that's more on kind of the kind of the negative side of things. So sort of three I guess keys to, I don't want to say keys to happiness, because I don't think that's what they're called. But I
Mm.
remember reading a long time ago that sort of there are three like important things in people's lives, um, and sort of like goals or objectives, potentially, and that's something to do, someone to love, and something to look forward to.
Mm,
So, if we think about those three elements and how it, can have potentially positive or negative ramifications of what we're talking about, I think it can maybe help our conversation.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you have, if you have a best friend in your life or something like that, they could potentially, hit all three of those. If you have more than one close relationship, like you've got a significant other and you have a best friend, and then you have, like you said, Quincy, is maybe associates in different areas of your life. Like, I'm looking forward to going kayaking, or I'm looking forward to going to this festival or trying this new food, like different areas of your life that, um, other people enjoy those areas too.
Right. Like I've got a buddy I play tennis with, but we don't do anything outside of just playing tennis
Tennis.
together. You know what I mean? And then I've got and so almost like we're trying to build a support network is kind of what it looks like to me, like a support system. When I think
Sure.
about my relationships with other people, I've got you and I've got Dr. Feldman, and I've got Dr. Henderson, kind of as my business relationships within this, and then I've got just I just feel like there's so many different areas, and
Mhm.
when you map out those different areas of your life, it's almost like you have greater clarity around what it is that you uh, maybe sort of kind of need. Do you have a hobby? Okay, are there communities for those hobbies, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a social media community, or is there a local community? And I know if you're in a rural environment, and then maybe it's a little bit more difficult, and that's kind of one of those benefits of like social media groups. Renee,
Mhm.
you're in a speaking, like a speakers group where you can have
Yeah.
interactions and maybe build relationships and things of that nature. And so I think we have to take that multifaceted approach of saying, okay, I can have virtual relationships with people I've never even met before, who I've never even spoken to before, probably never will speak to. Like I feel like I have a, a virtual relationship with Oprah and all my favorite people that I like to listen to, my favorite authors and things of that nature. And
Yeah.
so if I'm feeling lonely, well, I can go and have that virtual interaction by watching one of their videos. And so I think that as for veterinary professionals who may be having that difficulty, there are different levels to it. I can't just tell someone to go and find friends or make friends, because again, as Dr. Feldman said, if you got social anxiety, that's hard. That's like telling me to go jump out of an airplane. Just go do it, doc. Like I'm terrified of heights, and
Hmm.
I would be terrified to do that. And so to find a small step, maybe start out with the social media type thing at first.
Yeah. That's really good. I like them both. Um, I like them
One
both.
of the things that's been I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you-
One of the things that's been challenging for people, of course, during COVID-19 times, has certainly these isolation components, and physically isolated, and
right.
so and that can be obviously problematic for people, especially if you kind of had some loneliness to begin with. Then it gets really exacerbated, and with depression, and it just really can snowball. So, how, and there are ways to connect, not necessarily ideal, like we were alluding to. Going to conferences for veterinary professionals, conferences, whether they're in person or virtual these days, can be very helpful. It provides some of that social connectedness. You're with like-minded people, who share common interests, and so on. So that's besides some of the social aspects of the conferences or meetings and so on. But that's a really, something that I think people maybe dismiss a little bit. But a lot of people look forward to going to these meetings and the conferences for networking purposes, to see other colleagues, and just to, as I say, be around sort of like-minded, similarly interested people. Hopefully they'll get back to in-person type of events, but we do the best we can under the current environment.
Yeah, they are. I know we will be in person later this year, but I do think that the virtual space provides something, right, versus nothing. And I've treated LinkedIn even as a virtual conference to a degree. When I first started using LinkedIn in the summer, I didn't know what to say to people, and I didn't want to come off as some weird spammer. So I kind of struggled around, like a Bambi, trying to learn to walk, what to say to people in order to really get them to engage. But I figured out what to say. And it was once I made the shift in my mind that it was like, what would you say to a person at a conference that you walked up to? Hi, how are you? My name's Renee. It looks like I could see their position. It looks like you're doing this. Like, what do you enjoy most about doing that? Or you've only been with the company 6 months, what do you think of the position, or things like that? And so essentially that would be the same type of engagement that I would use at a conference in person. And I've had real success, and I've made some connections, and I've been able to have virtual conversations with people in video settings where I wouldn't have otherwise met them. I mean, I met some from the United Kingdom, which was super cool.
Right.
So that was neat.
And I think we have to look at the long-term implications of the virtual relationships that we're building, because, as Dr. Feldman said, COVID's not going to be. Hopefully, COVID won't be around forever, and I can assure you, like they're already packing airplanes. I was talking to someone the other day. They're packing airplanes full. They're not skipping rows anymore. They're not skipping seats. Like, we're headed back towards full in-person type interactions. And so check this out. I actually went walking maybe about 3 weekends ago with someone who I met virtually back in maybe around September, October. And we've had
Okay.
all virtual meetings together. And then finally, we get to hang out in person. So I believe that if you're kind of looking at the long-term return on investment, right, of building virtual relationships, maybe you'll get to fly out and meet these people. Maybe when you go to conferences, you'll already have some people you can connect with, right?
Yeah.
That you've been having these virtual conversations with. And I think that's a really key part to kind of keep in mind too, is that
Yeah.
maybe it's not in person now, but these virtual
Mhm.
relationships eventually turn into something that's in person.
20 years ago, my brother, he was a huge gamer, and that's how he built relationships. We lived in Michigan. He met people through his games, which, you proceed with caution, right? Because it is like this, this is 20 years ago. Like, there wasn't even video back then. So he met people, but he moved out to Washington with people who he had only known through through the virtual setting. And lo and behold, they became roommates. They became best friends. They worked together, and he was like the best man at his wedding. He's now like his second brother, or first brother, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they created a lifelong friendship out of something, that was originally just in the virtual environment. So, it could happen. Well, this has been really great, you guys. I think that we've had some really powerful conversations over the past few weeks that have been a little bit longer, but I love just having this short conversation. I think it's really relevant for anyone in the veterinary profession right now, and even outside of it, right? We know that this is not unique to the profession, but I think we've covered a lot of ground here today, and I think that it can give people hope and maybe some ideas or inspiration to, just begin to warm up to to the opposite of loneliness, which is connectedness, to belonging, to happiness, like Dr. Feldman said.
We talk about like sort of keys to well-being,
Yeah.
and that's I think that's what what I was trying to get at, and what we've been talking about, in a brief way, just kind of scratching the surface here,
Yeah.
about that. But social connectedness, belongingness, is another powerful concept, that we want people to, if they feel they belong to a network, to an organization, to friendships, uh, etc. So yeah, good stuff here. Thanks for bringing it up.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen. Well, I appreciate your time today. And to our viewers, again, if you guys have any suggestions for topics, and please feel free to join us next time. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, and maybe drop it in the comments, right, Renee? If there's something that you do that helps you with your social connectedness or belongingness or finding friends or removing isolation, leave it in the comments, and maybe it'll
Yeah.
inspire somebody else, empower somebody else to want to go and give that thing some thought and maybe even a shot.